So I know I talked about this before, but here we have Alpha J talking about how HBO Max imploded seemingly overnight. Here's some more panic over HBO Max and Cartoon Network content.
HBO Max is on fire. I'm sorry, I meant HBO Max is burning to the ground before our very eyes. Deadline reports that HBO Max is pulling a lot of titles from its service, and we can look through here: Aquaman, Close Enough, Dodo, Elliot from Earth.
Oh, I'm surprised that they're pulling some of the non-Cartoon Network stuff. I thought this was mostly Cartoon Network fire sale.
The Fungies, Infinity Train, Mao Mao, Mighty Magiswords, OKKO, Pac-Man, Squish, Summer Camp Island, Tig and Seek, Uncle Grandpa, Victor and Valentino.
These are a lot of good shows. One thing I like about this though is that it reminds me how good the content on Cartoon Network used to be, because now they're just ruining with just like Cartoonito content, and like the most engaging of which is like either Teen Titans Go or Apple and Onion. It's very close. No, it's not. Apple and Onion's probably the best show they have going right now.
Yabba Dabba Dinosaurs, and so many more. Quote, as we work towards bringing our content catalogs together under one platform, we will be making changes to the content offering available on both HBO Max and Discovery Plus.
Wait a minute. So they came out and said that this is because they're working on new streaming service and people still got mad? What?
Will include the removal of some content from both platforms, the company said. At the same time, we're already starting to bring our content catalogs together, like the launch of the new CNN Originals Hub on Discovery Plus.
Oh, they're making a CNN section. I think that's actually a smart move. It's cool that they're having the CNN Originals Hub, because I think that a service where you can watch stuff from cable news on demand, I think is going to be like kind of the future of cable news shows, like the opinion stuff. We see Fox News doing this actually with Fox Nation, and I think that's really smart. MSNBC needs to find a way to do this. CNN Originals Hub actually makes way more sense than doing CNN Plus or whatever, because I think CNN Plus is kind of a niche thing, but it definitely is something that would work as an add-on to something you already have.
Mind you, this is in addition to about 2 weeks ago when I made a community post talking about the Batgirl movie and the Scoob movie being canceled, and about 70% of HBO Max's development staff being laid off. So why is all of this happening?
I mean, that's not bad though, because a lot of these companies tend to be bloated. I would not be upset by them making the company a little bit leaner, to be honest.
Happening so soon. So as a few sources report, Warner Bros. And Discovery are having a merger, being named Warner Bros. Discovery Inc., quite unique. And
are they actually covering it? I was not expecting them to cover it, because most people have just been acting as if all of this stuff is going to be gone and they're not going to be able to like access it like ever again. But it looks like he's actually going to go through and explain exactly what's happening here, which is really cool, and this is exactly what people need to see.
And will fuse their services together in approximately 2023. And to those savvy, this comes 5 to 6 years after telecommunications giant AT&T would have merged with Time Warner, as it was called at the time. Now it's called Warner Media. And to get to the point, it has been reported that the merger was not viewed as a success on AT&T's end. Quote, in many quarters, the news is being seen as AT&T admitting defeat after an ill-fated attempt to bring content and distribution together. So basically, to lick their wounds of the whole mess, the spin-off of Time Warner and AT&T means that AT&T is now out of the entertainment arms race. However, it was
I didn't know that part of this is AT&T leaving? What? I didn't know that.
Reported that AT&T would spin off Time Warner and Discovery to create this standalone media company, which apparently starts out $55 billion in debt and will be spending more to compete. And I want you to keep that number in mind for later. Quote, we are now in a world where relevance and future success will be tied to the greater scale and growth globally.
It is nice to see them sort of like go with a globalization thing, because part of me wonders like, hey, we watch, Rick and Morty in America, but like, what are they watching in France right now,
It was stated that Discovery and Warner currently spend a total of $20 billion a year on content, and that Netflix plans to spend $17 billion on content.
That's crazy, considering the fact that Netflix's money seems like way more wasted on their content than Warner. Now, granted, Warner's content is good. Netflix makes enough bad content to like fill like 3 different 24/7 boomer channels on cable TV. Now granted, Netflix also has like some great shows, but it's just like the ratio of good shows to bad shows is pretty ridiculous on Netflix.
content this year. So basically that they're spending more. So to put it in simpler terms, it didn't work out for AT&T, but it may work out if Discovery and Warner Media basically create their own fusion together and become a media powerhouse together away from AT&T.
Fusion is just a cheap.
Oh yes, that's one thing I saw. If you guys watch the podcast Cord Killers, or if you don't watch the podcast Cord Killers, I would highly recommend checking that out. This seemed to be the most interesting thing about this merger for me. You have HBO Max and Discovery Plus, two very different audiences, but if you combine them, you pretty much have every single audience that watches TV, period. If you combine these two, like, this is like a mommy and a daddy. Like, this is like everything that you would need. Like, this is great.
So going back to the $55 billion in debt, this is probably the reason why a lot of shows and assets were either canceled or written off earlier this year. Now, in an article from Slash Film,
and that stinks because there were shows like Close Enough that people said were pretty good. I was surprised to see that show get canceled.
the company has written off $825 million off in the second quarter of this year, and if you don't know, the assets that can be concluded as a tax write-off includes content impairments, the article stated, for projects that were already in production and development write-offs for titles that were in early stages. Mind you, this doesn't appear to count Scoob and Batgirl, but obviously I'm an outsider so I don't know. But this is all to say that the new company service is financially in a hole, despite being #1 in so many areas, and decides to cut off shows that weren't performing well to focus on what they deem quality shows that will help the new streaming service to be, quote, profitable in the United States in 2024, and for its global streaming segment to generate $1 billion in revenue by 2025. This is
Now, one thing I'd like to know is, if you guys in the comments of the live chat, do you guys think that this is a good idea? Because yes, they are #1, but they're trying to, they see this really big financial issue that is, it's not imminent, but it's definitely like gonna show up in the future. So they want to like mitigate this by cutting costs. Now I'm worried that this may cause them to lose that #1 spot. But do you guys think that it's worth it for the money aspect? Because, if you, cut the costs enough, you'll lose, market share if you keep on canceling all your shows, of course. But at the same time, if you don't cut your costs and keep on holding on to that #1 spot, that could leave you in the same situation that Netflix is left in right now, where Netflix is kind of down in the dumps because they are bleeding money. They're out of venture capital finances, and so now they are doing everything they can to squeeze money out of the consumers, whether that's making the service cost more money and then putting in ads or just making it more expensive without ads.
This is most likely what led into all of the shows being taken away because someone or some people have deemed it not to be worth it in the grand scheme of this media arms race. My good friend Crit has assembled this list here that I'll have on the screen, and apart from a few shows, every show is still available for digital purchase, which means that it's not completely off the internet. It's just that a lot of shows aren't available to stream. Shows like Dodo and Odo.
Now that's not entirely true. If you guys have the Apple TV Plus app, you'll be able to watch anything that you buy on iTunes. Just buy the content on your computer first, and then you log into your log into the same account you use for iTunes in Apple TV Plus, and you'll be able to stream it on your TV.
The former name being ironic here, do not appear to have any other way to view them and thus are extinct, or as we would label it, lost media. Leah of Toon Rins, a cool creator that you guys should check out, tweeted out, fun fact, the only way to watch book 3 and 4 of Infinity Train will now be through digital purchase on Amazon or piracy, because unlike books 1 and 2, 3 and 4 do not have DVDs.
And that's what annoys me the most, and that's one thing I love about having physical media. If you have physical media, no one can really like take that away from you, unless it was like, I thought I had it all together, because you have it physically, and that's why I like having DVDs. I like ripping DVDs because then it is digital, but I have it on my own like server, so where I could stream it on Plex. Some of this stuff has some transients to it.
How much money does it cost to keep these shows on a streaming service? Now, I'm not a business expert or even a streaming service expert, but it does appear that the only cost these things should have, just off the top of my head, is that these shows would have to be in a server to be reached at anyone's home and devices.
I think that they're lying when they're saying that they're removing the stuff from the servers to save money, because that's absolutely ridiculous.
When you get HBO Max, when you subscribe to HBO Max, you're not downloading terabytes of shows. You're purchasing the access to these shows, which are on servers, and I wouldn't imagine it's to cost that much.
Cost comes into play when hosting a server when two things are increasing. One, you're trying to host more things on the server, or two, you are preparing for an influx of users. I don't really see either of those things happening. I think they're kind of just lying when they're saying, hey, getting rid of 6 seasons of a cartoon show people like watching will save us money. Like, no.
And to keep the train rolling on bad news, it appears that this streaming service might be a higher price than one would pay for either or, and that means for a lot of us, at least the ones who pay, we will be paying for a bunch of Discovery content that we didn't ask for. Quote, we worked for 5 years to make 100 episodes of animation. We worked late into the night, we let ourselves go. We were a family of hardworking artists who wanted to make something beautiful. And
by the way, the production on this video by Alpha J is like insane. Like, this is like really, really good.
HBO Max just pulled them all, like we were nothing. Animation is not nothing, and we worked through the pandemic to make 20 linear episodes that are our most beautiful work yet. I cannot wait for you to see them. You will see them. I will not rest. And what she's referring to here is season 5 of Summer Camp Island potentially not being released and thus becoming lost media. Ian Jones-Cordy of OK.
No, it's gonna be released. I really do think that they're just gonna throw it on the new streaming service.
AKO Creation had a more comical take. They were moving Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures. When you think about it, we never stood a chance. However, I'm sure that a lot of creators and a lot of staff of these shows are affected by this major loss. So basically, as far as I know, this comes down to AT&T not seeing streaming and entertainment as a long-term valuable investment, which led into HBO Max and Discovery wanting to compete with Netflix, Amazon, and Disney, which led to a giant initial financial loss because of merger fees and thus the company being in debt, which led into the ruthless cut of shows, which when you think about how a lot of companies view animation,
I don't think that's what it is. I think what it is a hasty move to speed up the creation of the new streaming service. They're gonna get rid of these shows for whatever reason. I don't know why they're getting rid of these shows now instead of just waiting until the new streaming service comes out. If the new streaming service wasn't coming, I think that all this content would be staying here.
I'd imagine they didn't think too much about removing a bunch of kid shows because apparently kids don't care. You don't need me to tell you that these companies don't and never did care about the preservation of these shows. And I wish there was a bigger point to attach hope to, but as it stands, as I said before, things are looking spooky for Cartoon Network, and I don't know exactly where I would shift my attention to if the entire thing just so happened to just dissolve into a category on a streaming service.
They were just like so many insane great shows in Cartoon Network. Even some of the ones that the more recent ones that got pulled, OKKO, Infinity Train, Summer Camp Island. We are never going to see an era of Cartoon Network that great again. I don't think. I think that what I would prefer, and I think that what a lot of people would prefer, and I think would be great for Cartoon Network, is for them to not lean heavily into like an Adult Swim, but make a sort of like Teen Swim where you have like you take a lot of these older shows and you bring them back with the same creators. You say, hey, it's TV-14. You could have like blood in this now and cursing, like, and then you can have a little bit more freedom. You let the characters grow up, like what you saw happen with Samurai Jack. I think that's a more natural progression and could cause these shows to be a lot better.
Getting back to Julia Potts' tweets, she had this reply here. I think all artists need to come together and figure out how we can make it in this world without having to rely on big corporations.
That's kind of cool. I like the idea. If she wants to make her own streaming service for like individuals who just want to make their own content and put it somewhere, that is dope. They should definitely do that. Shows like Final Space. Like imagine like the guy who made Final Space being allowed to, just have a streaming service where he could throw all his stuff up there. I like this idea of making a streaming service for cartoon creators. It's almost like creating the Cartoon Network of the streaming era.
And that's why I'm excited to see things like Hell of a Boss manage, because if one can make it, a lot more can make it. And I'm literally on my knees begging for more sustainable independent IP. But I suppose for now, we have to wait for more info. I want to give a special thanks to my friend Critical Nerd, who also makes videos.
That's cool. I mean, I understand being miffed and upset that it's not here now, but it all is coming back eventually. So I don't think that now is like the time to panic if what you're worried about is like losing access to the content that you already that you were watching or that you want to watch. I'm basically just building out my own streaming service with Plex, buying content ethically, and then throwing it on my servers.